Hello again! So this was my interpretation, jam, whatever, of the Resident Evil 2, the original Resident Evil 2 from the first PlayStation, ending theme song, if you got the true ending. So if you finish the game regularly, like the first playthrough, then you get a different credit roll. It looks different, I believe. Maybe at least the soundtrack in it is different. But if you actually manage to, I think, now I would have to have had done any research about this, but I haven't. I think you need to play through the game at least 4 times. A-B scenario with Claire and A-B scenario with Leon. So I'm a drummer, I can count to 4, so that's 4 times. Right, and then you get this punchy, kick-ass 80s rock song that's totally out of the soundtrack genre, ballpark of the entire game, of the rest of the soundtrack. So it's fairly funny once you reach this ending and then you get to hear this tune. And it's like broad legs on stage, like this close to a power slide, you know? And what with the crazy solos at the end, it's amazing. It's lovely. And it was requested actually by someone years ago. When I started thinking about doing drum covers, I was still very active on Instagram, which I am clearly not anymore. If you follow me there, not at all, only maybe to promote that I did a new YouTube video. But there somebody said, what about the true ending song of the Resident Evil 2 soundtrack? And that I finally got to today. It was really fun. It's a funny tune. and it's also very close to my heart. Not exactly this tune in particular. Always loosen the snare wires first before you speak into a microphone. Not this tune in particular, but the game itself. So when I was like, I think 14, I got a used PlayStation. I was a Nintendo fanboy, but at some point, you know, the graphics and the new games, like new Final Fantasy and stuff like that, Tekken was amazing. And also like Tomb Raider, of course. And then at some point I had a video game dealer in my town who was coincidentally also called Dennis, but it wasn't me because then I was like 10 when he opened. I was like renting games for the NES and the Super Nintendo at that time to no end. And then at some point my neighbor from like across the street, he was also in my school. He came over and said, I need some money for stuff. Do you want to buy my PlayStation? And I was like, what? Yeah, look, it's got like so and so many games, and it's the PlayStation, and like, I don't know, I think it was 200 bucks or something, which was like 200 Deutschmarks, so our old German currency before the euro, which translate to roughly, I don't know, 100 and something euros. I don't know, cheap, especially for that time, because it was like only 2 years old or something, the console. And at that time, like Resident Evil was also already out. And I remember clearly in my video game dealer store, the guy who ran the store, he asked me like, and are you like super hyped for Resident Evil? And I was like, what's Resident Evil? And he said, yeah, it's like Tomb Raider, but with zombies. Of course, that's not exactly the case, but it got me intrigued. And when that guy, Arne, came over to my house and said, you want to buy my PlayStation? I was like, I don't have 200 Deutschmarks for you right now. So I said, I'm gonna think about it. And then I spoke to my mom, who was always very supportive of my gaming habits, in general of my hobbies. So when it came to like music or something like that, comic books or metal, she was very supportive. And so in that moment in time, I was like, Mom, that guy from my school just came over to me and said he wants to sell me his PlayStation and I kind of want to have it. Do you have like 200 Deutschmarks for me? And she was like, okay. She was literally thinking about it for a second, and I think later at some point she told me, yeah, that was like my month's wage or my two weeks wage that I earned at that point, or like savings or something. And she was like, okay, whatever makes the boy happy. And then she just gave me the money, you know, just out of the blue, which is insane if you think about it. But now that I'm a parent, I'll probably do the same. Only that I have a job that pays way more than what my mom earned, because she was like cleaning houses. She was a single mom, and when I was at school, she went to work, and she wasn't able to work the job that she learned, because she learned to be a carpenter, a carpentress, cool band name. And then she got pregnant with me, and she never actually worked this job, so to say. And this is the reason that she never actually started working in the job, because when I was older and she would have been able to go to work at least half-time or something, that was like 10 years after her finishing learning the job, you know, and that means nobody would have hired her, which sucks. But she did what she had to do to run our small family. Her and me, our household, we always had food, we had a ceiling over our heads, and I had like all the toys that I could imagine. A couple of years back, I realized how much she sacrificed for me, for me having a lossless childhood when it comes to materialism. And these days, I'm still like, you know, the collector guy. I collect vinyl records, not tons, but I like to buy my records that I enjoy on vinyl. And I have my video game collection that is pretty much finished. I kind of have everything I need, like the occasional new Resident Evil game, the occasional new Zelda game, Super Mario, something my favorite franchises, Animal Crossing, whatever, you know, and some special occasion games. But these days it comes down to like 10 games a year that I buy, and it used to be like 70 or 100 games a year that I bought. And but at some point you just don't have the storage anymore, not if you have like kids and you have other priorities like me. And so she gave the money to me. It was crazy, and I loved her to bits for that, of course. It was only later when I really realized how much that actually meant, because she was $200 short at that time. But she made it work. She always made it work. I loved my mom very dearly. She died at the end of 2023. This is not a tribute or something, but it makes me think of her. Anyways, so I got that PlayStation, and it had Resident Evil, it had Final Fantasy, and it had, even though Final Fantasy VII it was missing the disc 3, I believe. And at some point in time, I kind of got hold of a disc 3. So now I've got a complete set of the Final Fantasy VII game. Weird. I mean, who has a leftover disc 3 of Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation? Who? So there was this, I like this anecdote a lot. I always tell it to people when I speak of my love for Resident Evil. I was 14, I believe. I was 14 years old, and my mom kind of kept me away from horror and too much bloody action. I wasn't allowed to play Street Fighter. I wasn't actually, until I think when I was 14 it was okay, but when I was like 6, 7, 8, I don't know, I was in the 80s, early 90s. She denied me watching The Simpsons because she said they didn't have any table manners. And today it's really funny because I would not have adapted their table manners just because Bart eats like a pig and Homer, you know. But anyways, I actually grew to become a humongous Simpson fan up until the 12th season or something. But that's a different story. And so she kind of kept me away from violence, which is good. So she did her educational part there. But with 14 years old, so I had her at a point where I convinced her that I was able to distinct, you know, reality from, I don't know, from video games and from movies. So I watched, I don't know, I think with 14, I believe I watched Pulp Fiction for the first time and I loved it. And you know, stuff like that. I played games that were rather bloody, I don't know. And then I got this PlayStation and it has Resident Evil. So she went out with her boyfriend from that time. She said, like, yeah, you're gonna be fine, aren't you? Yes, I said, of course. And I just had gotten this PlayStation like days ago, I don't know. And I felt like, right, this is the perfect moment to start playing Resident Evil. So I popped it in, turned off the lights, closed my shutters of my room, turned off the lights in the entire flat, to be precise. And I played Resident Evil for like 2 hours or something. Almost shit my pants, was scared shitless, and then I think I wanted to go to bed, turned everything off. I hardly made it to the bathroom to like go to the toilet and brush my teeth because I was so scared. And it was the evening, of course. My mom went out with her boyfriend in the evening and it was dark and I was so afraid. But that sparked my love for everything horror, gory, and for zombies in particular. So from then on out, I was hooked. And when Resident Evil 2 came out, I was absolutely hyped, phenomenally hyped. And the game lived up to that hype. Absolutely great horror game, still up to this day. Still kind of better than the first game, not as C-movie-like, which is something that I really love about the first game, and which is, I believe, why I love old zombie movies that much. Running zombies are not real zombies, they are something different. Don't let yourself be told anything else. From there on out, I was like, zombies, zombie movies, zombie games, bloody stuff, shit like that. I had a phase, and then at some point I was like, okay, I watched enough gore movies, and then I was over it. And these days I still like my horror movies, but I like more like, I don't know, intelligent horror and stuff. Who cares? But that's my story about Resident Evil. I talked about this for way longer than I wanted, but I'm a chatty Betty, and I hope you enjoyed my little anecdote about my gaming history. This is not the only one, but I tend to like talking about it. So I hope this was fun to you. Recommend me to your friends. Go watch Frau Lametta's video or movie channel. She does amazingly written video reviews and recommendations in German though. And she's a good friend of mine. She just started up her YouTube account, and I would love for you to subscribe to her channel if you are into movies, and well, if you speak German or if you are into subtitles. And well, see you in the next video.